Happy Wednesday. I have missed you guys. We are literally live in real time, which is a super fun treat. It's a little after 12 Pacific time because we're a little rusty. Haven't been live in a while. I was telling our Zoom audience, I've been gone 5 out of the last 8 weeks. So on the last trip I was at a conference in Nashville, I hit Erik Hatch up, who's someone I've just always admired from afar. Oh, I got a stray hair. And I invited Erik at the last minute to be on today. We have nothing planned other than I just said, look, I'm just going to pick your brain. I want you to teach everybody how you built your team to do over 1,000 units a year. You heard that right. And we're just going to kind of walk through, and we have the luxury to be interactive today because we are here, in real time. If you're watching this or listening to this on replay, you're still going to get a lot out of it. You just can't ask us questions. But if you're here, you can ask us questions, right? So that's good. So Erik, I think we should start by way of an introduction, right? Because you are what I would call an icon in our industry.
Oh my gosh, you're going to make my head bigger than it.
I'm going to make your head get closer to the screen, so then it gets bigger. Yeah, just every time. As I get closer to the intro, you can just do that. But I say that because it's one thing to have that much success, but you also coach and teach and train, and you really give back a lot. And I think that. I think you've just done so many things for the industry besides just sell a lot of houses. And that's the only reason I say it. One of the things you've done is you've built nonprofits. And I think we should talk about that at some point. And I think from a business perspective, it would be interesting to maybe end our conversation with, how you actually structured them and what that looked like and how you kind of work them into your business. But you're an author, you're a coach, you're a trainer. You're in North Dakota, right?
Yeah, Fargo, North Dakota. Somebody has to be here, so it's me.
Let's start out with, what do you want people? What would be your perfect introduction?
I thought it was great. I'll tell you, this is I am a child of God. I'm an amazingly lucky man to be married and have 2 kids. And for me, real estate, up until a couple of years ago, I didn't know the difference between drywall and sheetrock. Turns out it's the same thing. I didn't know because I know nothing about the actual houses.
Where is this going? Oh, okay.
I was raised by a flock of women, know nothing about houses, but I learned a lot about empathy, and I learned a lot about servant leadership from my mom, Betty, who we were saying, I was 21 when she passed away from a cancer battle. My dad was never in the picture. And so I was orphaned at 21 and fell in love immediately with my church. I grew up at my church and ended up doing youth ministry and worship leading for about a decade. But in that time, my wife and I were battling major infertility, and we couldn't get pregnant the old-fashioned way, which is like my favorite way to try to get pregnant. And so that didn't work out. And from there, I used real estate as a vehicle for cash. And that's all it was for me, was I'm going to make some cash, but I still want to do ministry. And then as I started to build this, whether it be my real estate team or my coaching career, I recognized this is the greatest spot in the world for me to try to influence and make a difference. Is in real estate, because the business world is starving and is parched for something that is more empathetic, that is more servant-hearted, and that is more generous. And that's how I'm trying to live my life. So that's just a very brief background of how this all came to be.
Wow, there's a lot in there that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think the first one is that, and I wasn't aware of that, but you entered into real estate using it as a vehicle for a higher purpose and passion.
Yeah, and that was for my family, and it morphed and transformed. I built a team really fast. I went in full-time in 2011, sold 52 houses my first year as a solo agent, and then I did what everybody else usually does, and that's start a team. And at the end of that year, 2012, I sold 192 houses, had 13 people on my team, but I had sold 113 of the 192 houses. I was doing the lion's share, and I was just developing a whole bunch of people that were like the Rockettes behind me being this like star. And I was a bad leader. I was a bad manager. I wanted them to pick up my table scraps. And it ended up me actually getting kicked out of my company. I got kicked out of my brokerage. And I was this bastard child kicked to the wayside, having to start over. And I thought, man, that brokerage is so dumb. I was their top performing superstar. I was the top selling agent in my area. Like, how dare they? And I invited my whole team to come along with me. And 2 people said yes. And I recognized so quickly that I had done this wrong. I was given the gift of starting over, and I got to learn from my mistakes, albeit painful ones. I got a chance to recognize how much I had messed up. And it's so much easier to build a new house than to rehab an old one. And I got to build a new house, and I got to learn from the mistakes of the first time. Like, think about this. Like, the first smartphone was not the iPhone. It was like a BlackBerry, right? The iPhone got to learn from the BlackBerry and all their stuff. The first social media platform was not Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. It was MySpace, right? You got a chance to learn from it. And Zynga, I'll date myself there. There are all these old things that were like first to market. My team, I was first to market and building it, but then I just crashed and burned. I got to start over. And my gosh, has that been the best catalyst for, I think, building, having learned those mistakes, but not trying to figure out how do I rehab this old house. I just got to start over.
I am so happy that you said that, because, I have been very open with my story, Erik. I lost almost my entire team. And you know whose fault it was, Erik? It was mine. It was mine. I was a crummy leader, a crummy manager, a crummy steward of all that I was given. And I completely recognize that. Ben Kinney jokingly calls this Vija 2.0. And he's right. And I feel that way. I was telling someone yesterday, I don't know how you feel, but I was like, I've done so much work on myself over the last 5 to 7 years that I don't feel like a different person. I feel like a more pure, realized version of myself, like a, who God wanted me to be, right? Just closer and closer to that. And it just takes a lot of, I think, humility and courage for you to say what you said. So kudos to you, right? I really resonate with that a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of learned lessons, and I still want to be the number one student that's out there. I don't need to be the smartest person. I want to be the most passionate student. And so whether I get the chance to do this and have the honor of being on a webinar, or instead I get a chance to sit in a room with some really smart people, I want to be the most active student that's there. And it's just an honor to share my pains as well as my gains.
Well, thanks for doing your hair for us today. I appreciate it.
Well, I had to keep my bangs out of my eyes.
I know. We were going to talk about hair products, but it just, what we didn't have enough time is really what happened there. But I'm curious, though, and we'll move on. But it's an important topic for me, because I think there's a lot of emerging leaders, probably people going through it right now, listening and watching. What did a bad leader look like? When you said you were a bad leader and weren't doing things well and they got your scraps, like, what did that look like?
So Zig Ziglar has a quote that says, you can have everything in life you want if you help enough others get what they want. And I think that's what a good leader looks like. And so the opposite of that is going to be somebody who says, I can get mine and hopefully you'll get yours. And so for me, I was a bad leader in those early stages. It was about the Erik show. And I see a lot of people in this industry that are trying to build, and their immediate move is to say, all right, how am I going to win first? In fact, it was so interesting. I was on a coaches panel at a YLOCO conference about 30 days ago in Vegas. There were 4 of us that were up there. 2 of us were the loud ones. I was the loud one, and there was somebody else who was a loud one. And in that time, we had very differing views on how to build these businesses. And it got a little heated and a little salty in front of 1,000 people. And I kind of liked it, because I'm so confident in this. And the only reason why I'm confident in this is because I've been a bad leader. And now I like to think of myself as a leader who's striving to be the best version of myself. And that means that I have to put others, like if you said, Erik, how many people work for you? And my answer is, I don't have anybody that works for me. I go to work for everybody each day. And so I try to turn that around. Nobody works for me. I want to work for them. And I think that's what a good leader looks like. And so The opposite of that, a bad leader, would be this idea of showing up and puffing your chest and saying, get in line, make it happen. You gotta follow me. I think we need to follow people that are great, but leadership is just influence, Vija, right? Like it has no title to it. Leadership is just those that have influence. And you can have influence in this dictatorial sort of way, or you can have influence in this like
that's right,
passionate servant type of way. And for me, I'll choose that latter every time.
Well, and look, what happens is you get short-term results in the dictatorial way. And so, you can use fear, you can use, putting your thumb down on someone. It'll work temporarily, but it will not work in the long term. It's a horrible way to lead. And I know because I did it. I did it all wrong too, Erik.
Simon Sinek has this little quip where he says, Vija, this is the third quarter now. You continue to fail to meet your numbers. What the hell is going on? That's one way to approach it. Or you say, Vija, it's the third quarter. You failed to meet your numbers for the third quarter in a row. Are you doing okay? Right? It's the same question with a different tone. One is meant to condemn and to corner, and the other is meant to console and to comfort. And for me, I'd much rather focus not just how to recruit great talent, but for me, the measure of success is retention. The measure of success is great, talented A players that choose to stick around because we still find value in each other. If you cut somebody off, what you're saying is, I don't find value in you anymore. You can't do anything for me. And that for me is just not the kind of world that I want to live in. I want to live in a world that says, we are going to sacrifice together. And don't get me wrong, as a Christian and a man of faith, grace is a driving factor in all my decision making. But it sometimes is at conflict with being a business person. Yeah. Right? I'm going to give you grace and forgiveness, but I have to have boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so at work, we talk about a grace bucket, right? If you are in your first 30 days and you start falling off of what the standard is and you're not doing what you're supposed to do, that is a really good sign for what the next 30 years are going to be. And so you have to take immediate action with that. Mm-hmm. But if you've been with me 3 years, Vija, and you are now struggling, it's not to can you, it's to console and to comfort and to come alongside. And I think that's when leadership really shows up. Remember, leadership is influence. And I want to be able to meet you where you're at and help you get back to where I know you can get to. And the longer you've been with, the deeper you have added value in that grace bucket.
Well, you're so right. And the thing that most leaders, certainly new leaders, do wrong, for lack of a better, is to your point, they fail to clearly state the standards expected and the expectations. So what happens is you don't really need a grace bucket. When you have a candid conversation and I say, hey, Erik, congratulations, I'm hiring you. You're accountable to bringing in 8 agents a month and getting them into production at a 2.0 a month, right? Two units a month, right? Are you clear? Do you understand that? Do you want to repeat it back to me? Awesome. I'm super stoked about it. So Erik, we know from experience that the activities you're going to have to do is, setting 3 appointments a day, does that make sense? Is that something, I just want to reiterate, is that something that you want to do? And when the answer is yes, awesome. Because I never want to ever part ways with anyone. I certainly never want to fire anyone. And I know that since we're making a commitment together, that if you are not hitting that, I know you're going to come to me and you're going to do that. I don't have to do that. Right. And that's there's no grace needed if expectations are set, and most people fail with that, by the way. It's not your fault. It's a leadership thing. Most of us fail. If we look at someone failing, most of the time you have to go, well, did I really clearly state what was expected? Did I actually, how specific and explicit was I?
I think I heard this from Ben once. He said, a standard without a consequence is merely a suggestion.
Ooh, I love that. I don't know.
Maybe it was, let's not give credit to Ben. Let's give credit to
No, we're not going to give credit to Ben. We're going to say Erik Hatch said that.
Thank you. Yeah, witness. I stole it from somebody else.
Witness.
But a standard without a consequence is merely a suggestion. And one of the things that I find as so fantastic to do, especially with my agents, is when they show up, we certainly have standards that we have in place. We have best practices that will lead them to the results that they want. But we allow our agents about once a year to come in together and to redefine the standard. We tell them and we give them permission and space to say, what rules do we want to govern ourselves? And I'm always fearful, like, because if our standard is 24 deals a year to a month, I'm like, are they going to lower it to 18? Are they going to lower it to 12? But no, they push it up to 30. They push it up to 36 because they want to protect what it is that they've worked so hard for. And so the idea of when you assign somebody a standard, that feels like management sometimes. They may grow to resent that. If they can create the standard, they're now going to, they have a much likelier chance to own that, right? And to actually embrace it. So standards are imperative. We talk about how we have on the base of this, we have standards, and that's, nothing can fall below the standard, but the piece above that are goals. And the goals are the commitments that those agents are going to make that have to meet or exceed the standard at any given time. And this is actually where you manage, right? You hold somebody responsible to the standard, and they're going to resent you, but you hold them accountable and responsible to their goal, and they should hopefully thank you. And then where I love it is we have possibilities at the top of that. And as I shared, I'm a former youth pastor, and I loved working with kids because they were super naive. I could tell kids, like, you know what, you can go and change the world, and they were dumb enough to believe me. And I mean that in the nicest of ways. One of these kids that I got to help raise, in a sense, just ran this giant nonprofit this last weekend at our church that he dusted off and he built up, and it took a ton of work. And like, I get to sit back and be like, because he's young, because he's dumb, because he's naive, he had this chance to grow this awesome thing. And that only happens when we as leaders breathe possibilities into them. We are in a world that is riddled with doubts. And if you join my team, Vija, and I were like, you know what, Vija, I know we have the standard to sell 24 a year. Your goal is 36. Man, I think you can get to 36 if you work really hard. But what if I said, Vija, I think you can do 70 deals a year. I see how talented you are. And if you choose to be that person, I'm going to help lead you there. But if you want that kind of accountability, like, raise your hand, because I'm not going to put the pressure on you that you don't want, but I see who God made you to be. And that, for me, is where leadership, again, remember, leadership is influence, and that shows up at such a high capacity, but you have to have the standard to build upon that, or you can't ever get to that top side.
You know, it's so interesting because two things jump out at me. Number one, you know, I have 50 to 60 W-2 employees that I lead, and you're 100% right. And most of I have to remember, sometimes we're talking about independent contractors, and that is 1,000% the way to lead them, where their goals come to you, right, and stream up. I mean, that's partly the difference. Number two, everybody here wants to hear about how you built your team, and we're going to go into that. But what's fascinating, Erik, is you and I both know that the most important part of this conversation just happened. And yet most of the agents here are what they're going to listen to is, you know, how do I get listings? All the tactical things that are going to be really great. We're going to dive into it now. But if there's anything I could share with any of our listeners, it's that this is the stuff. Business growth is autobiographical. And until you really work on yourself and start creating that 2.0 version of yourself, you know, I don't know that any of the tactical stuff, if some of it might work, some of it will work, but you're going to have a churn and agents coming and going all the time unless you get this right, because wherever you go, there you are, right? With that said, I think we should walk through how you built it.
I'm ready to walk through it. I want to just share this with you quick because you triggered something in me. So this is the first book I wrote. Look at how handsome that guy is. It's called Play for the Person Next to You. I wrote it in 2019. And this is a servant leadership book. It's the heart before the head. We're going to send how to love and care for people. If you go to hatchcoaching.com, you can see our whole marketplace of stuff that we have, including this book. And I just wrote a second book as well called The Perfect Real Estate Agent Blueprint that hopefully prints next month. And
congrats.
We call it the Perfect Real Estate Agent Blueprint because it is just that. It is a blueprint. It is the hire this person at this time when you have this money. Like, it is a step by step, because we found that everybody just wants that. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to write something for the real estate industry that made sense. But this is the thing that will actually unlock those other levels. Because you can rip off a blueprint all you want, but if you're a crappy architect, it doesn't matter.
Well
This
said.
is and is built on the foundation of leadership, and there's no way around it. It is the core of what we do, and it's how we have to put the dominoes in place. You build a great real estate team and then become a great leader. Now, I think that you put the domino first to be a great leader, be caring about other people, and then start figuring out the structure thereafter.
Okay. And I know we keep saying one more thing. I am going to say one more thing. I don't care because it's live. We're unscripted. Like I get to say one more thing. And it's this, is that I heard for years, like, Chris Suarez, Ben Kinney, all these great leaders talk about, I read or listen to podcasts or listen to Audible 1 or 2 hours a day. Warren Buffett reads, 4 or 5 hours a day. And I heard it for years, guys. And I remember almost like kind of rolling my eyes a little bit, like almost like, it'd be nice. That'd be nice. Admit it. Some of you have thought that it'd be nice. Like, I got to make a living here. I got to that's all great. That's all high and mighty and whatever. And one day what place got $1 billion valuation. We got 100 million in funding. And our world's changed, and we hit, where the company went to this other level. And I remember being in a meeting with Ben and Chris, and I was just kind of looking at them and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, they did that. They did that for 10 years and you can't substitute that time. I can't catch up to that. Like the difference is that if you start now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, trust me, it is the one thing, if you get anything out of these webinars, it is the one thing that you just can't make up that time. Kobe Bryant talks about it a lot. You cannot make up that extra hour year on year on year on year on year. It just becomes impossible for your competitors, frankly, to catch up with that. So I did want to say one more thing. There you go. I got to say one more thing. It's my webinar. Now let's talk about how we built this. So you started off as a youth pastor and an agent. Why don't you walk us through your perfect agent blueprint? Because I'm assuming it's kind of based on how you built that.
It is, and it's
or how you restarted.
It's things that I've done and things that I wish I would have done. So instead of convoluting what my story is and what we think is the perfect blueprint, I'll say this. I'm a former Keller Williams agent. I love KW, and what Gary and Jay wrote with the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book has been foundational for all of this. I feel like I have some learned lessons that have come from this, and this isn't MREA 2. My book isn't MREA 2. This is designed for, I think, someone who maybe has a similar heart and a similar worldview that I have, and there you'll have, I think, rich opportunities. And so similar to MREA, we think that your first step is you're starting off as a solo agent, right? That solo agent, you're selling 0 to 10 houses a year, and you're just kind of finding your way. We call that a phase 1, right? Or tier 1, excuse me. Tier 1 agents are 0 to 10 transactions in a year. These are your newbies or your part-timers. You don't have any real plan. You're just kind of getting after it. Tier 2, now we're talking 10 to 24 transactions. You now are like, hey, I can actually make a living off of this. There's predictability. The things I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to totally unpack the tiers, but I want to talk about the hires, because I think that a lot of people want that blueprint. For me, the first hire is, and always should be an admin. You need to leverage and get all of that minutia killing stuff, that stuff that you can hire out at a $15 to $20 per hour, and you need to get that off your, certainly I'm talking Fargo prices, not Orange County prices or whatever, but you need to get that stuff off your plate, because most salespeople are designed to be social, designed to be salespeople, and they are not designed to be in the details. And so the first hire is an admin. This is your transaction coordinator, your listing coordinator. They are bringing your dry cleaning. They're bringing your pets to the vet. They're doing all of these things because this is a personal assistant as well as a professional partner. Now, after that, and I look at any of these key hires as you should have a minimum of a 3-to-1 return on that investment. So let's break this down for math. If I'm hiring an admin and their salary is $40,000 a year, and my average commission for my market is a $10,000 commission check, I need to be able to look at my books and say, Did this person help me to sell 12 more houses to make $120,000 so that I can have my 3-to-1 return on investment? I spend 120, or I spend 40 and I get 120. I'm 80,000 cash ahead. It buys me more time. It allows me to do more things in my lane. And so in its simplest form, this first hire, this admin, you should be able to have a 3-to-1 return on your investment. And rare have I ever seen somebody hire an admin and not sell more houses. I've seen people be irresponsible with their time with it, right?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that this is a partnership. The onus is on you then to take that time that's been given back to you and spend it lead generating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if we're talking about pursuance of wealth, one of my favorite words, it is not just the money you have. It is the culture and the community you're surrounded with, and it is the time in which you are afforded. And so I know a lot of people that have 2 of those 3. They have a lot of money, they have a lot of time, but they're surrounded by a-holes. Mm-hmm. Or they have a lot of time and they have a lot of money, but they don't have, excuse me, I said the same thing twice, but I think you get the point.
I get the point. It's good. It's a good point too.
Yeah. So if you are getting back that time, you should be reinvesting that in your building season. We always have to think about the seasons that we're in. And if you're in a building season, I think of it like my old football days, where in August we would have 2-a-days. We would have 2 practices a day in the morning and the afternoon. And it was like 5 hours of exercise because I'm in a workout season to get prepared. Your early days in real estate, up until you hit a point where you have great leverage in your life, are traditionally 2-a-days if you're trying to grow something big and substantial.
Well, I'm doing 2-a-days for my marathon. We were just talking about that. That's a perfect example. So I'm curious, in not just in Seattle, the market I'm in, but in a lot of markets I work in, we have 1099 transaction coordinators that you can hire per transaction that work with a number of agents. What I have found in, doing this and coaching and talking to hundreds of teams every year, is that's de facto most people's first hire. And I'm all for it, by the way. I have no issue with it, but it's not a full-time necessarily hire. What is your take on that? Like, do you think everybody should go into the first hire hiring a full-time transaction coordinator, or is something like that okay?
Yeah, I think you should hire a full-time admin. And yes, you can look to leverage it out, but for me, that's a Band-Aid on a broken arm. And the reason why is because it's not just the transaction coordinating that's sucking your time away. Mm-hmm. It's the constant client communications. It is the listing coordination. It is the runner responsibilities. It's all those things that you're doing low dollar per hour. And so in order to get there, I think you need to have 4 months of personal and business. So if this person is a $48,000 a year employee, that means they're going to cost you $4,000. So your business expenses, you got to have at least 4 months of that, plus 4 months of personal expenses. So if that's at $5,000, you gotta have $35,000-$40,000 in the bank, because you shouldn't ever put yourself in a situation where you're making emotionally irresponsible decisions based on bad business moves.
Well, yeah. And everyone always thinks, like, I've had agents like, well, I need to save up a full year's salary before I hire someone. No, you don't. You need to save up the first 90 days salary. As long as you have 4 months reserves.
You say 90, I say 120. We're saying the
okay. Same. I actually, you know what I always say is 4 months of reserves plus 90. So you
okay.
Doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong, but I think we're saying the same thing. Like, the point is that it's really 3 or 4 months is all you need to cover, because if you're not tracking to at least 3x per Erik's point, they're not the right person, or you're not ready.
Yeah. Now,
so we have this hire. Let's keep going.
First hire. Second hire is also an admin, and most people don't do this. They're afraid of 2 salaries, and by the way, the third one is also a salary, and the fourth one's also a salary. So we're really going to make it uncomfortable for you here.
All right, good. I can't wait.
The second is an admin as well, and this is now your growth admin. When I hired my first admin back in 2011, I hired a part-time college student at $10 an hour, and I was freaked out that I couldn't afford her, right? And how am I going to make this work? But what I gave her is I didn't give her my transaction coordinating and my listing coordinating and my runner responsibilities. I gave her that, hey, here's the thing that's been on my plate that I've been meaning to get to. I'm not quite at it yet, but I think this will be great for all my past clients. And she was no good at it, not because she wasn't a talented person, but because I handed her a creator job, and she was not designed to be a creator. And so there's a stark difference between your first admin hire and your second admin hire. The first, I believe, is to help you breathe, and the second is to help you grow. See, there's 4 things that we do to get business, 4 areas and 4 areas only. The first is PCSOI, past client and sphere of influence. That is the only stool that can stand on its own with just one leg. If you have just PCSOI business, man, more respect to you. But then you have low-hanging fruit. That's your Zillows, your Trulias, your HomeLights, very expensive portal leads. Third is you have long-term nurtures. These are pay-per-click, forced registration, things that take months, if not years, to maturate. And then the fourth is you have your reputation. That's reviews, that's Google local services, that's radio and TV and billboards and that sort. And so all those are great and well and good. But the thing that this second hire is doing is they're helping you to work on your PCSOI to build a stronger base than what most people are doing. Because people look at folks like Ben Kinney and they're like, and I've been this guy before. I want to do what Ben has done. And so you try to buy your way to the top.
Yeah.
And when you buy your way to the top, you now have an unsteady foundation and you won't ever get yourself out of this. This whole blueprint, Vija, is a blueprint of a micro team before you ever grow a large team. It is all about you as that producer saying, I got to build this business of support. And I have to understand that the greatest chance for me to get wealthy is for me to get producing. Not for other people to get producing, but for me to get producing.
Okay, I'm curious where open houses, just overall circle prospecting, lead gen, and prospecting fall into the 4, because you listed the 4 incoming sources.
Yeah. Open houses for me, those are, I would put those under PCSOI. Okay. Because I think that you're meeting the person face to face. Circle prospecting, that's a long-term nurture.
Long-term nurture.
Just like, yeah, I would say farming neighborhoods, circle prospecting, all that falls under the long-term nurtures also. Because the person is likely to probably buy or sell that day, but now they become a part of a longer drip campaign.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah. Got it.
So
it's interesting.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's interesting because I forever have always said to people I've said the opposite, full disclosure, but I think we're actually kind of saying the same thing though, which is I've always told everybody, get one of those TCs that's on contract, because your first hire, the minute you give an entry level. By the way, all of our operations people watching, I want you guys to know, I believe you are the foundation of our teams. I honor all of you. And if you give an entry level admin, typically a transaction coordinating, they will fill their entire day with it, I found. And so what I have told everybody is to go right into the growth assistant, which is funny. We both call it that. That's interesting, where they are getting more business for you out of your database. They're ultimately helping to ultimately down the road, hopefully they grow into recruiting and helping retain and take care of your team members. But their sole job is to build your business, is to do the events that you're not doing, is to send the emails to your database you're not doing, to set up the back end registration for every open house you go to, all the stuff you're not doing, right? Yeah. So it's just interesting. I have always had them do listing coordination, Erik, but just not TC.
Yeah. So here's what we're both saying is get that leverage and don't spend your time with the minutia killing. And so there's more than one way to skin a cat in this. And I'm just going off of what my best practices are. Your best practices have obviously brought great success also. So there's more than one way, which is great. I want to jump into what Sarah said. She said she hired somebody to get quality, better talent, and that they're helping with personal stuff and it's beneath them and not their job. I want to share with you one of my favorite things, and it's called framing. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down, because framing is naming the pain before the pain exists. In college, I worked at a Mexican restaurant for 5 years, and almost every table I went to, I would greet them, and then I would say, listen, I just got triple sat, or somebody called in sick, or the kitchen's running behind, or the bartender is backed up. But I would take their expectation and I would lower it. And I'd say, if you need anything from me and I'm not getting to you, please just throw a chip at me or raise your hand. I'm not offended in the slightest. It's my goal and my job to take exemplary care of you. And then I would deliver for them a good to excellent experience every time. But remember, their expectation dropped down to here. And as their expectation dropped down, I got better tips than anybody else. I wasn't the prettiest, I wasn't the fastest, but I knew how to frame things right away so that they would lower their expectations. Sarah, my guess is when you hired this person, you talked about how great it would be and how they would be in this high-minded stuff. And now there's like running your dog to the vet and picking up your kids that feels beneath them. In another opportunity, and I would challenge you, Sarah, to go to this person and say, I apologize, I did this wrong. I didn't frame what the pains could be. Because I find, Vija, that if I'm looking to hire, I don't talk about how great we are. I talk about how hard it's going to be. And if I'm looking to wait on tables, I'm going to tell them, hey, here's the struggle. Because I sit and I watch in restaurants. I'm like, why is the server not bringing over my check? Like, why haven't they come and taken care of me? And now I have unmet expectations that are leading to massive frustrations. We solve everything through communication. We solve everything from owning our mess that we created. If you didn't communicate this stuff to her, Sarah, I think you are rich with opportunity to simply say, hey, I messed up. I need to apologize. Let's start over at this. And you get a chance to reinvest. Now, let me name this. I have a coaching client in Orange County, and he's on the Zillow Flex program. So getting a ton of business from Zillow. And Zillow Flex came in and they're like, we got to cut it down by 30%. And he's like, I have 30 agents. And how am I going to feed all these people? And what am I going to do? And so I challenged him and I said, you need to go to your agents and you need to draw a line in the sand. And you need to say, guys, the game has changed. I didn't try to change it, but the game has changed. And you all have a choice right now. The choice is you're going to play the new game or you choose to step out. I really want you to play the new game, and I think you'd be great at it, but we're playing by different rules now. And Sarah, what happened was this guy had all his people show up on Monday ready to play the new game. And maybe you need to do that with your admin as well, is to draw that line in the sand and say, hey, the game has changed. There are needs that I didn't recognize. There's communication that I failed to do. Please accept my apology, but I want to invite you to be a part of this new game. Because when you invite somebody to be a part of the new game, you can't talk about the old game anymore. This is the new game, the new season, and it's not about talking about how things were, talking about what things can be. And so that framing activity, that framing opportunity, I believe will set you up for a better amount of success with your admin.
If you really want to go deep on framing, I recommend Oren Klaff's book, Pitch Anything. He really, really gets into framing at a level that's it's awesome. And he goes into examples and everything. I love that.
You see that's called Pitch Anything?
Pitch Anything. Excellent. It's not the kind of book, by the way, the first third of it is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. I actually learned about it from David Green of Bigger Pockets because I interviewed him for my podcast. But anyway, you would like that a lot.
Thank you for that. That's going to be added to my list. Yeah. I want to get to the third hire because this for me is the game-changing hire.
Perfect.
Okay. This third hire is called a partner. Now, different language, different places, different markets all call it different things. Some call it a showing assistant. I don't like calling it a showing assistant because it sounds subservient. In the place world, a partner is a very different thing than what I'm articulating. So I'm going to call this a showing partner for all intents and purposes, although they can work on the listing side as well. Just to keep it clear in the language piece here, I'm going to call it a showing partner. This is a salaried agent that comes alongside you to build your business. And here's the wins. Number one, you're obviously you now have a nurse supporting you for you being the doctor. That obviously buys more time, helps you to sell more homes, which is great. This person, this nurse, this showing partner now gets their MBA in real estate by working alongside you. They get better training and experience than anywhere else. In addition to that, it opens up this huge opportunity for your talent pool, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But the third is your clients are better served by this also. You don't have the new kid handling the negotiations. The seasoned agent is handling the negotiations. The new kid is opening the doors and serving. And that's where you can have the win-win-win. You throw a new agent to somebody, and we can all say with confidence that that person's not going to give them as high a level of service as the person who's been around for 4 years and is a really seasoned agent. And so we have a fiduciary responsibility in our business to give people our best, and new agents don't do that if you just throw them to it. It's irresponsible to let them practice on people that we really care about. And so in that, I want to share with you that there's one of 5 people who can actually get into real estate as a full-time commission job. The first is the person that has a sugar daddy or sugar mama. Okay. Second is the trust fund kid. Either one of these, you'll find outliers that will find great success, but usually these people aren't very hungry. The third is somebody with a part-time job who is selling real estate part-time until they can finally make their way. The fourth is somebody with terrible spending habits, financially massively irresponsible. And the fifth is somebody who actually has a savings account for 4 to 6 months that can get into real estate. Because on day one, if you come in with a buyer, on day one, and that most agents won't come in with a buyer on day one, but on day one, if you magically are the lucky one that comes in with a buyer, the average buyer right now is looking for 10 to 12 weeks, and then that home sits in escrow for 4 to 6 weeks. So if you can go 4 months without a paycheck, welcome to real estate. And that's the sole reason why we have an 86 or 87% fail rate in the first 5 years of real estate, is because we're putting people into situations where it's not designed for them to win. But when you bring somebody in on a salary and they are leveraging that top talent, that agent's going to sell more houses, that person's going to get stable support so that they can learn while they earn. And then they will earn the right to graduate. And when they graduate, this is where it gets really sweet. Because all that, I think, hopefully makes sense for people. And you're like, how am I ever going to pay for this? A showing partner makes $2,500 to $4,000 a month. Some people pay them a percentage of the transaction. We choose not to do that because we want to give them that stable. That means you're opening up the doors to the baristas of the world and to the servers of the world and to the office workers of the world who can't financially get into a full-time commission job, but they sure can take a $30,000 or $40,000 a year salary and have the opportunity to make a 6-figure income. And so it changes that opportunity, which is so exciting. But I love the chance that awaits now. And that is when that person graduates. A standard for my coaching clients and a standard for my real estate team is that everything is earned and nothing is given. And so you'll have one of 3 people that will graduate from the showing partner position. The first is actually the lifer. They won't graduate. They will stay working alongside you for years serving your clients. They don't mind working nights and weekends, but they don't want to deal with the emotional strife or the stress of being full-time commission. That's an amazing hire. I had a showing partner for one of my agents, stayed with him for 4 years before he graduated. And that agent is like, holy cow, that was the best investment I've ever had in my life, is paying that person's salary, because that showing partner did a grand majority of the heavy lifting, and that agent got to benefit from it. So the first is a lifer, and that's a really great opportunity, but most people won't raise their hand for that. The second is a graduate. This graduate joins the ranks of the other agents. Because here's what happens. And if you don't know this is happening, you are blind to it. You have all your agents, your 5, 10, 15, 20 agents right here. And you tell them, hey, we're going to add a couple more agents. And you put those agents at the same table. These agents, whether it's true or not, feel like mom and dad just had 2 more kids and they don't love me as much. And what they also feel is, there's not enough food to go around anymore. I get less. And so the move is, yes, you have your agents here. Don't put more people at the table. You put them underneath like this. And now they're leveraging. And as they earn the way and rise the tide, they'll sit at the same table once they've graduated. And so the second role here, Vija, is a graduate, somebody who has checked the boxes of time served, deals procured, and competency shown, so that now they can sit at the same table and earn those commissions. Now, the third, though, this is the thing that's lost me over $2 million in the last 7 years. I've been out of production now 7.5 years, and I didn't do this, and I'm kicking myself because I have coaching clients that are doing this now, telling me, Erik, you're an idiot for never doing this. It is called an empire builder. It is a graduate up your micro team instead of off your micro team. Off the micro team means, okay, now we're feeding this person leads and everything else. They're another agent on our team. Up the team means they're now working directly with your SOI. They're working directly with your sphere of influence, as well as the company deals that you were maybe working. But you go as that agent from being the person who's running the transaction to now you're simply running the relationship. You're there to shake hands and kiss babies, and that agent has now earned the right to run the transaction. Financially, that person's going to make, in most markets, $150,000 to $250,000 a year, but they don't have to be a hunter. They are a gatherer and a servant. Because when I got out of production in 2014, when my daughter was born, I was doing 100 sphere deals a year. I gave that to my agents on my team, who most aren't with me anymore. And when I handed off the transaction, I unintentionally handed off the relationship. And I went, oh crap, because now I watch in the MLS, is like, well, there's my buddy from college who now listed with Emily, and Emily never intended to leave me and never intended to steal him. But like, I lost that for forever. So I've lost over $2 million just in direct business, not even counting the referrals that come from all that. But if you take this partner that leverages you in the first place, and then they run your micro team, they should be with you for a decade and not for a short period of time. They should be serving alongside you with your clients. They're running all the details of the transaction. You get out of production and into leadership, because the only way you should tend to the rest of the people on the flock is if you are first a great leader. So if we talk about the dominoes, you get your micro team in place. You make sure you're working on developing as a leader, from your readings to your connections to your podcasts and everything else. And then you have, I think, the ability to add on more agents. There it is.
Well, thank you. That was outstanding. And what it reminded me of is our opportunity model at Place. I mean, I think we're all realizing the same things, that, we're really incubating people to, create their own empires within our umbrella. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's really what's driving a lot of us at this point anyway, to even have teams. So we one of our teams, Adelina Rotar in Austin, 4 of her team members have gone on. Yeah, she's great. 4 of her team members have gone on to create teams within the team effectively, right? Dripping Springs, San Antonio, a couple other places. So yeah, I mean, amen. I mean, that's what it is. I have a question for you. I more of a curiosity question for you that I've wondered before, with models that pay salaries like that, because one of my initial, it's not a right or wrong, it's a genuine question. When I have launched companies, I get nervous about fixed overhead, right? I usually sock in on cost of sale. Now, it's more expensive that way. Anytime you throw something as a cost of goods sold, it's probably going to be more money, right? Like, in other words, paying a transaction coordinator $400 or $500 tagged onto your closing is more expensive per closing than having someone in-house, right? That's exactly how I make my decisions, frankly, to go from cost of sale into fixed overhead, is that. So when I hear a whole bunch of fixed expenses like salaries and everything like you're talking about, it does admittedly make me a little nervous, because you have one bad month, fine. You have 3 bad months, and it's a big nut every month. So my market right now, year to date, is down 35% from where it was last year. Yeah. And we staffed for where we thought we were going, not where we are. So I'm in that right now. And I'll tell you that I think I framed it well with my team. Let's first start with the partners. The partners are salaried agents paid for by the agent that they work with. So that's not my expense. That's the expense of my agents. I'm teaching them to be business people. Got it. When it comes to my transaction coordinators, I have 5, right? I have 3 listing coordinators, right? It's expensive. It's messy. We have opportunities in which to do that better and different. They've all known from moment one that because I framed it, I said, listen, this is all based on the money that we're making. And if the game changes, we all have to come to and say, where are we at? Like,
I have some admins sitting around twiddling thumbs right now. And so what we've done is we've challenged them to say the game has changed. And so guess what? You're a part of the marketing team now. And you're helping to handwrite letters and helping to do these other things. So we're immediately putting them to work in other categories.
Yep.
The next piece, if it comes to it, I'm going to have to let some people go. And do I want to do that? No, absolutely not. It wrecks me on the inside. It'll keep me awake for weeks on end. But I framed it with them, and I've told them this truth is I said, I'll lose money or I'll forego all my profit before I'll forego the commitment I made to you. And for me, that was just my easier route. And now I'm in it so deep, Via, with the number of admin I have. Again, if I could go back and do it over again, I'd probably do a little more of what you're doing in terms of paying some outsourced companies and not being tied to all that revenue. But ultimately, there is amazing power and momentum. Like, I'll give you as an example. I have 2 agents on my team that each sell over 100 homes a year, which is with the help of one showing partner. They each sell over 100 homes a year. And the reason why that's possible is because of the admin support that we have. Wow. And so I can boast these numbers where my agents who are in production average 45 transactions per agent per year. And I can boast that because of the admin support that we have. So some of the numbers that we have are reflective in the support that we provide also. And so there's a bunch of different models. I don't wish I had your model. I don't wish I had my model. I just wish I would make changes a little bit faster.
It's you know what, again, it's not about right or wrong. I think that as we wrap, that went so fast because I think we started late, a little technical glitch. But what I think the overarching theme here, Erik, is these are the conversations that we need to be having. Cost of goods sold, versus fixed overhead. At what point do you make these decisions? I remember when I had a TC. She was $500 a file, which is expensive. And the only reason I was paying that is because she did more interaction with clients and I needed it. And it was where I started saying, okay, look, I'm seeing and this was years ago, but I'm seeing 6, 8, 10 in the pipeline a month now. That's a salary now. It's time. And that's where traditionally in all my businesses that I've transitioned, because it is more expensive. Like once you get to 10, 15, 20 deals, that wasn't $500 a deal that I was paying someone once they were in-house. Right. But I do get nervous about it. Maybe it's because I went through the downturn. I don't know, but
I'm nervous about it too. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. I have a responsibility to these people, and I'm going to do everything I can to help them to win. Right. But I love the pressure that it puts on me.
Yeah.
To not just cut expenses, but to say, because there's 3 ways to make more money, right? You sell more, you spend less, or you find efficiencies. Efficiencies are in the fees that you charge and the commissions and the conversion rates and everything else. So my agents have an onus and a responsibility as well, and they know that they need to convert better on the appointments that we give them in order to keep these people gainfully employed. And I love that they have that kind of skin in the game.
I love that. As we do wrap up, because there's so much more to talk about. What's the one thing that you want to leave everybody with the perfect blueprint, the perfect agent, growing your team to 1,000 units? What's the one last final word?
I'm going to say this is, if you're doing this with a focus of making a ton of money, I don't think Via or I will be the ones that would be worth listening to. Yeah. If you're doing this with trying to improve the quality of your life, and that means adding wealth, which is, again, an enrichment of finances, it's an enrichment of culture, and it's an enrichment of your time, then there are some well laid out blueprints and examples of how to get there. And Via and I are saying the same thing. We're going at it with maybe different strategies at different times, but it's the heart that's the same. Yeah. And if you get your heart right, you just have to have your commitments and your disciplines figured out thereafter.
Well said. And how I would end it is that we're both speaking the language of business, and I'm not sure it's so different. I think that in different iterations, we're probably doing the exact same thing, actually. So. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. That was fun to be actually here at noon at PST, a little afternoon, doing this live. I've missed you all. It's been great. I keep over promising that I'm going to change these into podcasts, and I will someday. And I have some fun announcements coming up. So I'm giving you teasers. But let's all thank Erik Hatch for taking the time out at the very last minute to join me in just an off the cuff combo today. I really appreciate you, Erik. And it was fun to see you last week. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Go sell some real estate.